I will yield my place to Senator Bin.
I thank the Senator. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent at the outset that a much longer statement I prepared on this issue be entered in the record as if read.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a few points here, if I may. I think a little bit of history is immediate past history is important for us to recall here. With regard to whether or not this policy that has been pursued in this administration relative to Bosnia-Herzegovina was a sound one or not, it is the same policy that was pursued by the Bush administration. The Bush administration set a policy in motion that said we would support an arms embargo against the Bosnian government as well as others, and that we would not use air power to relieve the genocidal actions of the Serbs. To my great disappointment, although there were faint efforts to change that policy by attempting to convince our allies to lift the embargo, truth of the matter was this administration did not change the position. Some of us, as long ago as the last 4 months of the Bush administration, argued loudly, if not persuasively, that the Bush policy was an incorrect policy, argued that we should lift the arms embargo, and in addition to that, that we should supply weapons to the Bosnian government, which at that time was a multi-ethnic government made up of a council of presidents, roughly divided a third, and a third between Muslims, Croats, and Serbs within Bosnia. A Bosnian army that was made up of Bosnian Serbs, Bosnian Croats, and Bosnian Muslims. And we even passed the so-called Biden Amendment through both houses of the United States Congress that authorized the President of the United States to seek a lifting of the embargo and to transfer up to $50 million worth of weaponry off the shelf to the Bosnian government. That was in the last months of the Bush administration. I don't say this to speak to so much what I did or didn't do, but to mark it historically. I think after Senator Moynihan was one of the few people who went to Sarajevo, went to near Srebrenica, went to Tuzla, went to Belgrade, went to Zagreb, met with Karadzic, met with Milosevic, met with Umperfor, met with the Croatian leadership, and came back and wrote a report, at which time I was debriefed by the Secretary of State and the President, and the report called for lifting the arms embargo and using air power to strike at the Serbian genocidal undertakings that were just that. Back then, I was not the only one in the world community, but I came back and pointed out that this was raw, unadulterated genocide, that the Serbs had set up rape camps, a policy explicitly designed to take Muslim women primarily into camps, rape them, have them carry the children to term in order to intimidate and pollute the Muslim people in Bosnia. Everyone said that wasn't going on. This was not 1937 or 1938 or 1940. But now no one questions it occurred. I remember coming back after going up through Mount Igman and over the mountains into a place called Kisseljack, and going through villages and coming back and saying there are graves. You could ride through a village in the mountains and see 3 or 4 homes pristinely kept, window boxes, flowers, 3 in a row. Next home, a hole in the ground. Next home, perfectly kept, 2 holes in the ground or a chimney sticking up after that. And graves at the end of the town road. And I was told by our own people, as well as the French, God bless them, and the Brits, that these folks are all the same. They're all bad guys. They're all like this. They've all been doing this for all of the last 4 centuries, which is historically inaccurate and was inaccurate in terms of what was taking place at the time. I remember when we watched on television, the senator from Arizona and I spoke to it on the floor that night when they overran Srebrenica. And you could actually see UN soldiers sitting there with their blue helmets and hats on top of tanks, watching the Serb conquerors take the women and children and send them in one direction, and take the able-bodied men and send them in the other direction for extermination. This wasn't because they wanted segregated prison cells. They took them to the woods, they dug holes, they shot them, they dropped them in the holes, they poured lye on their body and bulldozers the dirt over them. And we were told, no, that's not happening. Now we have satellite imaging that uncovers this. Surprise! Surprise! Oh, my Lord, this is happening. And the reason I bother to say this, because I know you all are tired of hearing me saying it for the last 3 years, is to make one very important point. And one, with all due respect, I don't think the President has accurately made. And that is, what is our interest in Bosnia? Is there a vital interest? Is there an interest? Or as my friend from Missouri said, does this action represent our interest and our values? Well, if this does not represent our interest and our values, then nothing that has happened since the end of World War II represents our values. How many in this chamber, like me, have gone to Holocaust memorial events and heard the refrain, never again, never again? On the same continent, in the same proximity, to the same death camps, it is happening again and happened again. But this time it was not Jews, it was primarily Muslims. In 1935 and 37 and 39 and 41 and 43, had it been Catholics like me or Protestants like many in here who are being taken to death camps, the world would have risen up years earlier. But it was not. It was Jews. And we all turned a blind eye as a world. I respectfully suggest, were it not Muslims this time who were in the rape camps, were it not Muslims who were being exterminated, who were part of this new phrase. I wonder how many of us ever thought, as students of World War II or as participants in World War II, that we would ever serve in the Senate and hear the phrase openly used by one party in a conflict, and the phrase being ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing. Isn't that an antiseptic term? And notwithstanding the fact only the Serbs used the phrase, I kept hearing on this floor that they're all the same. They're all the same. There have been atrocities committed by Muslims and by Croats, but they have not set up rape camps. They have not set up death camps. They have not mass murder as part of a coherent plan of people based upon their ethnicity and their religion. That's called genocide. Genocide.